advocacy, community, education, resources, rewards. Learn more at thervadvisor.com.
This is the RV Advisor Podcast with your host, Tom Alexander. Get all the latest information, trends, advice from experts, stories from the road, and more in the world of recreational vehicles. Now, here's Tom.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the RV Advisor Podcast. I'm Tom Alexander. And a bit of a departure for us today. And this is an interesting connection because we had the folks from Harvest Hosts on, and they hipped us to this gentleman. His name is Sam Pillsbury. And if that name rings a bell, it might be for two reasons. It might be because you saw a movie that he made, or you had a bottle of his wine from Pillsbury Wineries. Sam, welcome.
Hi, great to be with you, buddy.
It's great. It's great to have you. And this is just such an interesting. Both lines of work are fascinating to me, and I have to say that looking through your work now, we'll get a bit of a history as we go on here. But you made a lot of movies in New Zealand and a few here in the United States. And now you've turned your sights to winemaking. So I guess the question is now, the question I guess really is that the transition going from directing actors and working with cinematographers and trying to get a film made, which in itself is just a Herculean task.
Yeah, that's for sure. A lot of people don't know that, man. I spent as an independent filmmaker, you spend 95% of your time pounding the pavement, I got to tell you, and not getting paid,
Yeah, I'm well aware how that works. And had a little bit of experience on that, not to your degree, but I'm sure that it's a never-ending odyssey. But you transitioned into winemaking. And winemaking is also something that you have to have a passion for, or don't get into it, right?
Or have an awful lot of money and do it as a hobby. Which when I first started getting interested in winemaking, which was a long time ago, and in the 70s in New Zealand, I started thinking about it seriously. And I used to see these wineries with these guys with these fabulous architecturally designed wineries and these palatial homes. And I thought, God, there must be a lot of money in wine, and what I didn't realize was these guys had just sold some company that they made, that they started. They just sold it for like $500 million and decided to indulge in a hobby. So it's not. One thing that most people don't realize is if you plant your own vines, you are pretty much stuck to not making a profit for 15 years. That's how long it takes for the vines to mature, for the wine you make from them to become sellable, then to sell the wine, and the cost of the infrastructure is phenomenal. I mean, buying all that land, turning it into a vineyard. I mean, the fence, the trellising, the deer fencing, the irrigation, the well, the pumps, and then of course you have to pay people to farm that property for years with no income coming in at all. It's pretty stunning, actually.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Now, I will say, for our viewers, for our listeners, I think most anyone who enjoys wine is obviously most likely aware that the majority of wine that's produced in this country comes from Northern California, Sonoma and Napa Valley and those kinds of places, among other places around the country. But you almost have to do a double take or a spit take when you hear Arizona, because you immediately think of my head goes right to desert.
Saguaro cacti in the Sonoran Desert. Sure. No, it's really pretty counterintuitive. We're literally, my vineyard's literally 45-minute drive from the Mexican border. But where we are in southeastern Arizona, where the Chiricahua mountain range is, the altitudes are quite high, and our vineyard is in the foothills of the Chiricahuas, and that's at 4,500 feet. Now, the Sonora Desert's too hot to grow wine grapes in, but at 4,500 feet, the temperature drop is stunning. The nights are even more amazing because grapes love a lot of sunshine, but they don't want too much of it. And we have endless sunshine during the day, and then it drops 40 degrees at night because it's high desert. I mean, there's just a whole range of things that are phenomenally, they're like secret weapons. I mean, we have plenty of labor. The land was just extraordinarily cheap. I mean, I bought my first 40 acres for $400 an acre, you know. Wow. I mean, it's Napa's like 300,000 an acre, and they can't get labor, and they have fires and no water, you know. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that people constantly say to me, look at me like I'm crazy. I mean, I've had people laugh in my face and refuse to even sip one of the wines because how you must be crazy thinking you could grow wine in the Arizona desert. Well, guess what? All classical grape varieties originated in the Middle East. They like the desert. They mostly came from southeastern Anatolia, some a little bit further south, and even in Greece.
Yeah.
They like the desert. They like plenty of sun. And we even have this another secret weapon apart from the cost of our land, and at that altitude there's more UV than almost any wine growing area on the planet, and that's just full of secret weapons to make the wine more interesting. It ripens the grapes in a different way. It gives you a lot of control. I mean, then we have these really fierce winds, especially in the spring, and then what a lot of people don't realize, they're a real pain. I mean, they shred the shingles off your house and so on. Well, the other thing they do, as they do in the Chateauneuf area of southern France, where the Mistral comes up from Africa, blows all the mold spores away, it blows predatory insects away, it makes the land pristine. So there's just a whole bunch of things that make where we are just phenomenal, you know?
Wow, you know, and listen, you know, that was probably just a quick introductory crash course into what it's taking, or all the elements that are kind of happening there, all the tumblers falling into place, if you will, at your winery, at your vineyards. And, you know, I just can't even imagine. Okay, so you're coming from being a film director, which again is a very exacting occupation,
yeah.
And art, and you know, a million things to think about. And it's similar with being a vinter, but in sense that it's the work ethic is critical.
Yeah.
But how did you make that transition from, you know, what was, is there a commonality, I guess is what I'm asking. Is there something that you could say, you know what, I'm using the same part of the brain to work with these actors and cameramen, and then also get that grape to pop, you know?
Yeah, you mentioned some of the things that are different. I mean, I think, well, first of all, for me personally, I was brought up in a family that was pretty close to lunatic in a lot of ways, but fearless would have been one of the things that you could describe them by. My dad would just take us anywhere in the world, you know, at the drop of a hat. I mean, we emigrated from Massachusetts to New Zealand when I was 13 in 1960, when nobody ever even knew where New Zealand was. So I did have that as a kind of background thing. And then the other thing is that I've never thought about how do I make money and be rich. I've always thought about how can I make a living doing something I care about. And I love movies. When I was even in my first year of high school, I became crazy about film, and I belonged to film societies, and I watched those black and white 16 mil films chattering through that old projector, you know, and yeah. I just love movies all the way through college, and just decided in college that I wanted to make films, and I sort of figured out how to do it. But all this time, I was also really interested in food and wine. My parents were pretty sophisticated in those areas, and I actually bought some land on an island off the coast of Auckland in the mid '80s to plant a vineyard on while I was still deeply involved in making films. And I had so many work offers in LA that I actually sort of had to move to Los Angeles and sell that land and sort of start over again. And I think that it's quite funny. I've thought about it recently. I started making films in New Zealand when there was no film industry and without any real training, and I started making wine in Arizona when there was no wine industry. So the downside is it's a huge challenge. The upside is there's not a lot of competition around. If you pick your right, if you pick your right story to tell or your right piece of land to plant your grapes on. Yeah. So I've been lucky to figure out how to do what I love, and look, one day I'll make a living out of making wine. Still hasn't happened yet. It takes that long.
Yeah. Wow.
When you plant on grapes, but I had very specific things. When I made films in New Zealand, I wanted to tell stories about New Zealand, and I wanted to do it with New Zealand cinematographers and actors. And a lot of my colleagues would bring people from LA or Australia, and I just felt very passionately about that. And it's the same with the wine. I have two principles about making wine, which one of them is that I came to wine through food. I also grow my own food, and I've cooked lavishly for the last over 40 years of my life. And I'm guest chef at a bunch of restaurants and things. And so I'm the kind of wine I make is the wine to go with food. It's more like in a French style. It's not cocktail wines. I'm not interested in the biggest, oakiest, jammiest, highest alcohol wine on earth. That's a whole different world. I make wines that are clean and elegant and actually
pair well with Chateaubriand or something.
Absolutely. We make about 16 or 18 wines, and each one of them is kind of meant to go with a certain kind of food, and that's one of the things that's important to me. The other thing that's important to me, and this relates to what I was saying about making films with the New Zealand stories and New Zealand actors, we only make wine from the grapes we grow organically. We ferment our wines with the wild yeast that comes in on the skins of the grapes. They come from our place. We do everything by hand. So we're pruning by hand, we're picking by hand, we're sorting by hand. We get covered in grape juice all the time. We're smelling the grape juice, we're tasting it. We don't do anything in tank, we do everything in oak barrels. So we have this very strong sensual connection to the wine and the grapes and where we come from. And I just have always felt there's too much generic food and wine in the world, and I wanted to make a wine that came from a place and was made by a person, rather than like a hamburger where the meat comes from 17 different animals, from all over the country, and even out of the country. My dad used to raise beef cattle in New Zealand, and guess where he sold all his meat to? McDonald's. Grass-fed beef from New Zealand, and it was the cheapest meat they could buy back in the 70s. Wow. So we have a mission, and I always joke with my friends, like, if I'd gone to a bunch of venture capitalists at the start and said, "Listen, I got this. I want you guys to fund me planting no Cabernet Sauvignon, no Merlot, no Sauvignon Blanc, planting Rhone varieties in the Arizona desert." Of course, they would have laughed me out of the building. And we've won more awards in the last 4 years than any other winery in the United States. So
I'm just looking at that as we speak, and congratulations, by the way, the 100% Arizona sustainable high elevation vineyard, and everything is estate grown. It says here, 2021 San Francisco Chronicle American Wine Awards have been announced, and we've received 16 honors. That is fantastic.
In the last 4 years, we have won 58 medals out of 59 entries in the biggest, toughest, most respected wine competition in America. And I'm going to tell you, when you send an atypical Chardonnay or an atypical Syrah off to a bunch of judges in Napa, you expect to get laughed out of town, not win one of the top 3 Syrahs in the country, twice the top Malvasia Bianca, 7 times double golds, which is where all 5 judges in a blind tasting give it a gold medal. So you look at a 95.1, that's one judge giving it a gold medal,
That's, that's amazing.
It's pretty amazing for someone who doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Our guest is Sam Pillsbury, and Pillsbury Wineries. You really I'm telling you, this is just amazing. I'm looking at a picture of the estate and the mountains in the background, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Check it out, PillsburyWine.com. We got more with Sam in just a minute. This is the RV Advisor Podcast. Back in just a moment.
The RV Advisor was created for you to protect your rights as an RV enthusiast and arm you with the knowledge to navigate the complex RV industry. There's strength in numbers, and that's why we've built a nationwide network of RV owners, empowering you with the advice you can trust at RVadvisor.com.
We are back on the RV Advisor Podcast. My guest is Sam Pillsbury, and he is a vintner based in Arizona. And of course, you have heard of some of his films. Roger Ebert called Free Willy 3 the best of the series. And Sam, you directed that. And boy, that, I remember that film quite well, and it did really well at the box office. Were you able to save a few bucks from that experience and put it into the bottles?
Actually, that's a very interesting comment. I've made a practice. I was born in New England, and I've retained my Yankee Puritan austerity, and I made movies for nearly 40 years, and every time we were on location, we would get a thing called per diems, and all my colleagues would go and spend it all on oysters and champagne, and I would cook at home and put it in the bank. So I mean, it's quite funny actually. I was sent back to New Zealand for like 5 or 6 weeks to shoot something a couple of years ago, and I got an apartment instead of a hotel room and cooked at home. And when I was finished, I bought a boat, which I keep at my beach house there with the per diems that I saved. So to make Free Willy 3, I was in Vancouver for 11 months. And I got enough per diems to actually buy an apartment, so which I subsequently sold to help pay for the vineyard. So there was a lot of things like that being frugal really kind of paid off, because you hit it right on the head. Almost all the money I ever made making movies has gone into the vineyard and this as well, because I purchased this land 13 years ago, and I still haven't paid myself a penny. That's how long it takes when you plant your own vines.
Yeah, you were saying it could take 15 years before you even get a grape that's working for you.
Well, no, you'll get the grapes before then, but by the time you've made the wine and sold it and paid off the infrastructure, it's pretty standard. If you plant your own vines, you're looking at 15 years. That's pretty much accepted.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's commitment. That's what that's called.
Yeah, people say, oh, it's a labor of love, and it is, but I'm not stupid. I mean, this property is worth a hell of a lot more than I paid for the bare land, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. And speaking of the property, and like I said earlier, Harvest Host is kind of let us know about this wine company, Pillsbury Wine, and they said, folks love to go there and experience what it's like, and to see things in motion, how it all works, and visit there and stay there in their RVs. Tell us a little bit how that connection happened and why it's so important to you.
Well, it happened because of a previous employee. I don't know whether she was approached or she approached them. She passed away. But we've been involved with Harvest Host for 6 or 7 years. And, we do a lot of things because we believe they're good things to do. Like I deal with vegan and vegetarian restaurants that don't have a lot of money. I just want to be involved with people doing good, healthy things. We farm organically, and we're very, very, very much protecting the environment all the time. And we just thought this seems like a good idea. And they've always been great. All those people have always been great. We've had mostly couples, in their 60s and over, but this, there's been, especially in the last year, there's a lot of young couples, some of them with like 3 kids, and they're they're RV schooling them, I would say homeschooling. And there's 100 acres that people can park on, and all the vineyards are there, the wineries there. People can see how a real vineyard and winery operates, and we have a tasting room there, and they can come and buy some wine. And sometimes in the last 12 months, they bought a hell of a lot of wine because of the pandemic. There was nothing else to do. So, so it's turned out to be good. It's a really good organization. They're lovely people, and all the members have been fabulous.
That's terrific. Yeah, we're thrilled to be in alliance with them here at the RV Advisor, and they spoke glowingly of Pillsbury wine and the estate. So I would encourage our viewers, our listeners, to check it out if you're in Arizona, specifically southeast. Is that correct? Southeast
we're
Arizona.
Really right down in the southeastern corner. It's about 45 minutes due south to the Mexican border, and it's about 45 minutes due east to the New Mexico border, right down in that corner.
All right, so you're strategically located in that area, in the high desert, if you will.
Well, just a bit south of the I-10. So a lot of RVers are really en route somewhere, and this is a convenient stopping off place. So there's 2 or 3 other vineyards and wineries in our general area that are harvest hosters too, so people can have a really good time.
Oh, that's great. And let me ask you this: do you find that people are beginning now to? Well, obviously, your success with the awards is speaks volumes, but do you find that people are beginning to recognize that southeastern Arizona is becoming a bit of a hotbed for wine?
We've really not, until I noticed October 2019, there started to be a perceptible shift of people coming down and going, oh, we wanted to see where the grapes are growing. We've heard about this area because I mean, I bought my first land down there in 2000. I mean, I've been down there for a long time, it's been way off the charts of anybody being even remotely interested to go that far, and it's changed, and it's grown quite a lot in the last 2 years. And although the pandemic stopped things, we had to shut down for 2 months legally. It's actually driven a lot more people to us. We've actually done better business in the last year than we have in the last 20. I mean, it's been amazing, and we're getting a lot of, when I first started out in the early part of the last decade, I would go into a restaurant in Phoenix with some of my wine, and they wouldn't even look at me. They would laugh in my face and turn their backs. I mean, the whole idea of Arizona wine. But you realize that so many people just live on perception rather than looking at essentials. And all you got to do is trust your palate and taste it. And some people did, and they've been friends with me ever since, because they had the guts and the trust in their own abilities to actually look past perception and see what the actual quality really was. I'm really close with some chefs that embraced my wines years ago, and God damn it, they've got better every year since too. So it's really great. But it's changed. And people used to say, like, up until a few years ago, people say, oh, Arizona wines are terrible. And then it was, Arizona wines used to be terrible, and now they're quite good. And actually, the truth is, they didn't even used to be terrible. There were 2 that everybody drank that were appalling. And but I was making a Pinot Gris that we served at White House state dinners in 2001 and 2003. I mean, there's been 1 or 2 other really good winemakers in our state for a long time, right back to the early 90s. And but the perception was that it was crap, and some of it was appalling. Some of it was just really bad. And one of the things that's interesting is I've just been lucky enough to do. I've never once made a wine to please somebody or to try to make it be what they like. I've only made wine that I love and believe in and care about. Now, the truth is, if I couldn't sell any of it, I'd have to change. But slowly, we've got this snowball thing going where people are going, and starting to work at last.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic, and boy, we got to have you on again, and we talk about a lot of stuff, specifically some of the great wines that you've got going, and also talk movies too, because I know that's a huge passion of yours for obvious reasons. We really do appreciate your time, and absolutely got to have you on as a repeat guest. And hey, RVers, listen to what Sam Pillsbury is telling you. Get down there, check it out. The I-10 isn't far away from this area. You want to get down there, put it on your bucket list to see what's going on down there, because there's some pretty remarkable wines being made in southeastern Arizona.
And our tasting room is sandwiched right in between our vineyards and our winery. You can stand on the front porch and look at both of them right in front of you. So it's all there.
Yes, I'm there. It's you sold me. I'm hopefully gonna be out in Arizona in October for a few days, and I'd love to check all that out. Sam, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. You've been terrific. I'll talk to you anytime, and let me know, and I'll come on air with you again. Okay.
Wonderful. Sam Pillsbury is our guest. He is from Pillsbury Wine. Visit pillsburywine.com. This is the RV Advisor Podcast. We'll be back in just a moment.
Buying an RV is an exciting moment, like buying a new house. You should inspect the RV and the contracts thoroughly. You may not know what to look for, and that's where the RV Advisor comes in. GG and her experts are here for you at rvadvisor.com.
We're back on the RV Advisor Podcast. I'm Tom Alexander, and of course, as always, I am joined by our good friend, guest coordinator, Neve Carey-Zacco. Hey, Neve, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Tom?
All right, doing fine. Busy and going from project to project, but we've had an uptick in activity at the RV Advisor, as you well know.
We sure have. It's been quite a busy few months here. We're really just kicking off our campaigns with our partners and things like that over the next few weeks. As many of our members and followers would know at this point, we have some fantastic partnerships between Waltham Stick and the Boondockers, and so many more. And it's just been a very exciting time. We are going to get on the road here this weekend coming for one night, and then the following weekend for 4th of July we'll be gone 4 or 5 days on the road. So we have partnered with many people to do some really fun giveaways. We have one for a 3-day rental that is affiliated with Gigi's sister company. We have one for $100 parts voucher to be won. We have merch to give away from many of our partners. So yeah, if there's anyone listening that would like to reach out to us and partner up with us and get on the road with us, we would be more than happy to represent a brand. And yeah, just do some fun giveaways and just get the word out on some fun new brands.
All right, that sounds great. And of course, if you're interested also in coming on the show, on the podcast, yes, Neve is the point person for that, and it is N Carey at thervadvisor.com, right? That's N Carey at thervadvisor.com. It all goes, she is the point person. You handle it all and coordinate all our guests and get them squared away.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to have some new faces on the show, or some new voices for those that listen.
Yes, excellent point, because we not only have this video cast, if you will, of the podcast, but of course the audio only version exists on Podomatic and on Apple and I guess Spotify and Stitcher, Amazon. It's all over the place. So wherever podcasts are available, I guess you could say. So pretty cool. And Neve, thank you so much, and safe travels as you get out there.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again Monday.
Yes, see you then, Tom.
All right. This is the RV Advisor Podcast. See you next time. So long, everybody.